What is going on, guys? Gemworks here, coming at you with a brand new sculpt. And a few months ago, HBO Max dropped the second season of Fionna and Cake, and my girlfriend and I have been watching it, and we have been loving it so far. So, how about we make a model of both Fionna and Cake? Actually, as a matter of fact, guest starring on this video, my girlfriend's right here. Say hi, honey. She really is such an angel. Anyway, getting started on the model here, we're going to begin our block out of Fionna. Now, you guys know the drill at this point. As it goes with cartoony characters, we're using a lot of round shapes. Mostly every single part of their bodies consists of some degree of spheres that get stretched or squashed. The fun thing about Fionna is that she is much more, let's just say, anatomically accurate to a person or real human than Finn is. A little fan service never hurt no one. But the proportions are fun to work with. Making her mouth was a lot of fun. All we really had to do was just carve out a section of the face and push it in. And there you have it. This is Fionna's base model. The proportions took a lot of experimentation to make it feel natural while still also accurate to her new design in the Fionna and Cake show. Back in the original Adventure Time when it was a special, she looked a lot more noodly, and now she surely looks quite a bit more fleshed out. Like I mentioned to you guys in a previous video, I think it's a little bit better, and this was a habit that I started getting into recently. It's a little bit better when you start adding in the base colors at an earlier stage. It's a lot easier to track how accurate you're being to the source material, especially since you're not working in at least at this stage, you're not working in a model unit that's using this artificial light. All the colors are essentially being directly sourced from whatever material you're pulling from. Now onto the posing. The inspo was by this Obra no Moda. Dude, I'm sorry, you gotta forgive me for butchering that, but I mean, the piece was fantastic. I loved how dynamic that Fionna and Cake looked. Obviously, the style was a pretty big departure from the source material, a little bit more realistic, so to speak, but it was still fantastic. I was looking for something that was super dynamic, and that was the primary source of my inspiration for this model. So I gotta say, dude, kudos to you. The work was fantastic. So with Fionna largely done, now we're gonna begin Cake, and this one was even easier because the majority of her body was a gigantic tube that was shaped like an S, and that essentially was gonna be filling in the background right behind Fionna. And the head was a squash sphere with some eyes. We carved out a little bit for the snout, added some cones for the teeth, drew in some eyebrows, used some tubes to do the slits of her eyes. And beyond that, the base of Cake was pretty much done. Obviously, adding in color gave her a ton of justice. Now here's a little bit of a hack for you guys. This actually was inspired by a fantastic sculptor named Polygon. I'm sure you've heard of him if you're watching my channel. And for a lot of pieces, let's say spots or stripes, he recommends using an entirely separate mesh for those clean cuts. So you saw previously where I extracted a bit of the head to make that spot on Cake's forehead and around her eye. And listen, don't be afraid to cheat. What I did now for the hands is I just copied Fionna's hand and I used that as Cake's, and then adjusted the proportions to make the fingers a lot thicker to represent the cat's paws rather than a human finger, of course. And then I duplicated that same hand and mirrored it and used it for the other hand. The tail and the legs are just more tubes. And with both our leads in check, let's begin the base. Now, truth be told, guys, I wanted to do something that was a little bit more dynamic. I know that with previous bases that I'm sure that you saw, I have basically just done a cylinder, and that was pretty much it, and then it was an environment. But I wanted to actually make the base cylindrical component a lot more complicated. And I think it would do justice to a model that overall I want to make it look pretty and stylish. So I used a whole bunch of radial symmetry techniques here to create a very even, almost mathematical approach to this whole entire operation. A cute piece that I wanted to add was a little bunny and cat insignia, which is super straightforward, just a bunch of cylinders, a couple of spheres, and we're going to use some tubes to make the snout. And I wanted to add that as a sort of emblem that would sit right in front of the base. Obviously, we got to give Cake her signature colors. But yeah, I thought that this was just going to add a ton of life and character to the base. Wanted to give the component in the middle a sort of leathery feel. And now it's time to do the base proper by adding a sort of environmental component to it. The idea is that with Fionna and Cake bursting to life with energy, I wanted them to essentially careen through the woods, which is why you see a log that's split in two. We're gonna add some rocks here and just kind of copy and paste them and reshape them to add some pebbles and give the environment a little bit more life. And then the primary support, because the idea is we want this entire thing to be printable, the support under Cake is going to be a gigantic dust cloud, a super cartoony dust cloud, using the inflate tool sporadically throughout to make it look like dust bubbles. Broken pieces of wood covering the front, again to flesh it out, make it a little bit more dynamic. And now it's just adding some of the preliminary colors to, again, bring it to life, really give the scene some depth and perspective. Given that the wood was broken, I want to show the inner part of the wood being a slightly lighter color. Now we're going to add a little log. Here's a flower, which again, I'm using some radial symmetry techniques to add the petals, making sure that they're evenly distributed. Of course, it's not Adventure Time without a little skull. So I wanted to take a skull kind of planted right in the base. Not so obvious, but not so hidden. And last but not least, I wanted to add our favorite little snail who has been corrupted by the Lich. I know this was early on in the original Adventure Time, but this guy was so iconic, I really just wanted to add him in. And I tell you, making this guy was a joy. It was first a sphere for the shell, then a big tube for the majority of the body, and some spheres for the eyes. Simple, straightforward tubes for the eyebrows. We're just gonna carve in some of the creases under the eyes to show those wrinkles. Another tube for the mouth. Really giving him that dour, upset expression, because obviously this guy is not happy to be here. More tubes for the antenna and for his stretchy little hands. And now, of course, let's breathe some life into him, give him some color, and give him those evil eyes. And after a little while, before you know it, our little snail is done. Now don't let the small stature deceive you. This guy is super bad news. So we're gonna take him and we're gonna put him onto our base. I settled on doing it right behind the log. I think it would be a great, almost Easter egg for people to look around and see and bring to life. I didn't want him to be very front and center. But let me show you what we got. All right, so now our model is done. Fionna and Cake have been completed. I have finished the base and everything is ready to go. With a couple modifications, it'll be very print ready. I need to add some supports underneath the feet to connect directly to Cake, because obviously we can't have floating objects in real space. But all in all, my objective was to make it look as dynamic as possible. So what do you guys think? Making cartoon characters is always a joy. If you learned something and you like what you saw, please give me a like and a comment, sub for more, as I've been having a joy experimenting with different kinds of models and media. And as usual, I'm very excited to show you guys what's in store for next time. So thank you for watching until the end, and I hope you stay tuned. Bye-bye.